Hello and welcome to Enquire to Choir. My name is Eva and I'm here to help you, fellow choir people. I get a lot of comments, messages, and emails about you as an amateur being in a position of assisting or being asked to be a choir director for a choir, and you don't know where to start. Most of you start from conducting, which is great, but I wanted to make this video to give you guidance. It can be overwhelming to start this position, and you can't know everything you need to know to do the job correctly if somebody didn't inform you of all the things the position of being a choir director entails. So in this video, I'll give you a checklist, a blueprint, an overview of the position, so you know where to start from, and the amount of surprises when you actually get to your choir is downsized. You may be wondering how short this video is for all of it. Well, that's the thing, we can't talk about this in just one video. We could talk about it for hours on end, and actually we have already done that because this channel was created for you. There are many in-depth videos here, but I can't make a video just me saying, there's already a video here on the channel, be sure to check it out for 30 times. So every time that's the situation, when there is actually a video about a certain topic, you will hear this sound. Additionally, I will put all the videos mentioned here in order on a playlist, so you can check out the playlist after you watch this video. Before we start, I just want to say that you're going to be okay. Yes, there are a lot of things you need to know. It is overwhelming, but it is manageable and it will get easier with time. In many cases, it turned out to be a real joy to be a choir director, myself included. I was once in your position. So, let's start with the video. I'll start with what I advise you not to do, really strongly. And maybe some of you will disagree, but I do stand by this. Don't come in front of your choir saying, listen, I'm new here. I do not know much. Please be kind to me. I don't know what I'm doing yet, and it will take me some time. Bear with me. I see many people doing this when they arrive to the first choir rehearsal, when introducing themselves, but it doesn't do what you think this will do. You think that by saying this, you will get some sympathy and they will be gentler, the choir singers will be gentler towards you, and they will forgive you some things. And while that may be true, you're actually inviting them to have opinions and to interact with you in a way that maybe they wouldn't do if you didn't say that. By saying this to them, you give them permission to direct the choir. Because if you don't know what you're doing and you let them know that's the case, then they know better because they're in the choir and then they know what the choir needs. That's not true. Because as I repeat here on the channel all of the time, you as a choir director are in front of the choir. You hear the cumulative effect of the choir sound. They, as choir singers, do not. So it's one thing to get advice and to seek advice from singers or seek their opinion about something. Is something easier for them or harder when you do it this way or this way? But introducing yourself to them by saying that you do not know what you're doing is something that is really dangerous. And if you have ever worked in a group, you will know that 100 opinions at the same time are the worst when it comes to progress. There is a reason why a choir needs a choir director. It needs a single opinion to lead. Whether that opinion is good or bad, whether that way of working is good or bad, that's debatable, and that's why there are better and worse choir directors, but nothing will slow down the choir more if you have to negotiate and discuss every decision you make. And if you say that you do not know what you're doing, you're actually giving them permission to interact that way with you. So I advise you not to do this. All right, so I know you may be thinking of rehearsals and performances first. That's just the first thing that comes to mind when thinking about being a choir director. But before that, please know there is a lot of technical stuff you need to know that doesn't even involve music. This comes from the fact that you're now standing in front of a choir. You will quickly learn that there's a lot going on behind the scenes you weren't maybe aware of if you were a singer in a choir, for example. This involves your choir management. If you have people other than yourself who run the choir, get to know them. Have a meeting before the first rehearsal, even if it's just a half an hour before. How the choir is organized is something you probably know from a choir singer's point of view, but there are many things you're not aware of because that's the job of choir management. They make it seem like everything is okay and you're not aware of anything being a problem because they solved the problem beforehand, before the rehearsal, for example. Some of the things you should know are: who has the keys of the rehearsal space? Do you get to have a copy? Is there someone you have to contact when you enter the rehearsal space if the space is rented? Where do you turn on the lights? What do you have to do in the space to make the space appropriate for the rehearsal? Do you have to turn on your electricity someplace? You get the point. Additionally, there is a really strong necessity when it comes to information, and that is you have to know what you have to do in order for your choir to have the music scores prepared for them. That doesn't just happen by magic. Who prints the scores? Who brings them to the rehearsal? Who prepares them for your singers? That is a lot of work. Do you do that or someone else from the choir? How much in advance do you have to send the scores in order for someone else to print them for the choir and prepare them? Do you have to send the plan for the rehearsal? Who writes the announcements when it comes to rehearsals and performances? Who informs the choir via email or social media? These are all things you need to know, because if you don't know that something was your responsibility, the chances of you not doing that are 100%. My point is, rehearsals don't just happen even if you planned them. You're maybe thinking of doing the actual rehearsal, but that rehearsal will not be able to happen in a good way, in an efficient way, if you didn't make the effort or if you hadn't done the things that needed to be done. You have to make things happen. And for that, you need to know if there are people who are responsible for certain things or you have to do the things. Whatever the case may be, just know that you have the authority to change the protocols. But obviously you can't change the protocols if you don't know them. That also goes for decisions. Do you make all of the decisions? Do you have to ask the choir president, the choir owner? Do you have meetings? Also, a really important technical thing you have to know. You have to know how your choir singers are positioned in the choir. Their positioning can affect the sound. And in any case, the positioning is an orientation point for you. Don't do it randomly or different every time, every rehearsal. And if you're coming to an already established choir when it comes to this, go with their positioning, but know you have the right to change it if you have a good argument for it. Just don't think of it as it doesn't matter, just sit where you want. Now, when it comes to rehearsals, there are many ways you can do them. It depends strongly on so many things, but blueprints exist. Please know you can plan the rehearsal, but chances are the rehearsal will not go according to the plan every time, or most of the time. It will take you a while to learn your choir speeds, choir tendency, capacities, and effectiveness, and receptiveness. Maybe they're very slow when it comes to learning a new score, but once they learn it, their progress skyrockets. Take notice of everything that happens during the rehearsal and reflect on it. You can plan the whole season in advance, but you have to be very flexible. It is necessary you have a plan, but take that plan as a trajectory, not as a rule. Rehearsals can surprise you. And even what you would consider to be unsuccessful ones don't turn out so bad in the end, after a while, for example. Things take time. People often come to the choir director's position and then they ask me, can I do this if I don't know how to play the piano or any instrument at all? Yes, of course you can. I mean, piano is a good vessel, any instrument is a good vessel, but you have your instrument all of the time, and that is your voice. If you play an instrument, great. Even a tambourine makes a difference. And when it comes to your lack of piano playing, don't look at it as a bad thing. By not playing the piano with the choir, you can create your own style. Professional choir directors and conductors don't come for me for saying this, but when it comes to amateur choirs, non-professional choirs, and choir directors, I think it is really a missed opportunity to decide that someone is not good enough to be a choir director if they don't know how to play an instrument, especially piano. I mean, we are singing, and you can always hire someone to be the accompanist. But for choir directing, it's important that you know how to sing. Of course, things are easier if there is a piano, but even that you can work on. You can take a few piano lessons. You don't have to be a pianist, you don't have to play the piano, but knowing the keys, the basic chords, what they represent, that's not so hard to do. It doesn't take that much time. It's a myth that is so difficult. For you to be able to press the correct key, that doesn't take so much effort and time for you to learn. So a few piano lessons, even if they're online, which I cannot believe I'm saying because I'm really not promoting piano playing online, learning online, because I am a pianist and I know that some of the things are just, however theoretical you put them, it's just not enough. But for this purpose, for knowing how to get your way when it comes to piano, even online, it works. I mean, even Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, or however you pronounce his name in your language, said that pianoforte, or the piano now, is the easiest instrument to play because you just press the key and the sound comes out. When you think about a trumpet or the violin, it takes a lot more. I'm promoting piano really well. Rehearsals consist of some of the parts that always repeat. There are a few things you will almost always have to do. One of them, the starter, is warming up. It is really important to warm up the choir, not just for your singers, but for you as well. Listen, you will have to talk during the whole rehearsal, and you will have to sing a lot, and you will have to sing not just in your own natural voice, but you will probably have to sing much higher, much lower to present certain things to your choir. Trust me, warm up is necessary for you as well. If you don't know any warm-up exercises, there are many resources on the internet. Just know that every warm-up exercise has a certain purpose and you can mix and match them. So if you think that just because your previous choir director had done the choir warm-up in his or her own way, it doesn't mean that you have to follow it all the way through. And if any piano playing exists in your world, you can try to accompany them during warm-up. You can find a person in the choir who can learn to do that as well, if you are not able to. And again, it doesn't have to be anything complicated. Now, when it comes to actual music, the way you choose your choir repertoire, you should really think that through. Again, it's not random. And choosing the choir repertoire in a smart way can help you, benefit you greatly. I would argue that choosing the appropriate in every way choir repertoire for your choir is half the battle. Of course, the choir already has its repertoire and you have to follow it, that's okay. But if you come to the rehearsal or the position of being a choir director thinking, great, I will now give them the song I always wanted to listen to, that can put you in so much trouble, even if you're not aware of it at first. Maybe it will take months to discover that was a really wrong piece to choose for the choir. So think it through. It's not random, and sometimes it's very dangerous to just, oh, I love this melody, without even looking at the score beforehand. There are many ways to learn a new choir piece. Again, practice will make things easier when it comes to this. You will know your ways better, what works, what doesn't. And of course, you shall adapt to every choir piece differently. It's not the same for every piece. So before starting a new choir piece, it is a very good idea to analyze it from a choir director's point of view. This will help you to also change your point of view when it comes to being a singer, being a choir director. The way we look at music from the point of being a choir singer is very different than what we look at when we view it as a choir director. Because as a choir director, we have to think about everything. And most importantly, we have to think about the correlation or corollary, that's the word, between all of the voices. You are a choir director, so you have to think like one. The thing a choir has is voice parts for every song. So that's something you will have to do all of the time, teach choir parts. I consider that to be an algorithm, a program that has its steps, and the steps are always repeating themselves in some way or another. Again, it's different for every song, but that algorithm tends to be the same. And with time, you'll learn how to be more efficient with it. That said, you have to be aware that you are maybe not aware that some of your choir singers can't read music and really do not know what you're talking about when it comes to certain music terms. For example, if you say crescendo, that is an extreme example, but maybe someone from your choir doesn't know what that is. The same goes for reading, knowing how to read the score. Maybe you have singers who can't read music, but there are ways you can work around that and you can go around it. The two scariest things people find to be the scariest things when it comes to choir directing is conducting and vocal technique. Conducting really looks unknown, really abstract at first, I agree. But I will say this now because I'm very sure that you already know about this video. Choir conducting for complete beginners. I think that video shows that things can be put in simpler terms. So conducting is something that you can learn, the basics you can learn, and there are ways how to practice it. And when it comes to the vocal technique, it has many details, but in general, the frame of it is always the same. The breath, the positioning of the vocal apparatus, and practice. You can always research the interwebs of this, and you will find that everybody actually says the same things, just it comes down to knowing the specific details or having more or less experience when it comes to certain voice behaviors. I will strongly advise you to take just a few lessons from a professional singers for you. So you come to the professional singer and you do the correct vocal technique, because you can theorize about the correct vocal technique all you want, but if you don't know how to produce it, that's a problem. Even for you when it comes to your voice, because you will damage your voice pretty quickly. The thing about the vocal technique, it doesn't need to be perfect. It can't be perfect. You have to practice it. And your choir needs a lot of practice to make some things spontaneous. For example, when it comes to breathing. But if you go to a professional who knows these things and can show you everything, you will get two benefits. First, you will learn how to do it. And second, you will learn how somebody else teaches that. So you will have a blueprint on how to explain the same thing to your choir. Working on music the choir already has is a different game, but general things to study are tempo, dynamics, and staying in tune or being in tune. My main point is time flies differently when there is a group effort. Things that are true for a solo performer do not work the same for a group performer. And you can be surprised. It's normal. So if you feel stuck when it comes to a certain thing, try to reframe your point of view. I always say here on the channel, you saying, why are you slowing down 100 times and being angry at your choir because they're slowing down in tempo doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but because often case it's just they do not slow down because they don't think of the tempo. That often is a repercussion of something. Just an example. Also, there are many kinds of voices, so I want to tell you that in real life, the standards maybe do not work. So you know about the soprano, alto, tenor, bass, for example, but when it comes to the voices in your choir who are, I suppose, amateur and not professional in any case, they're not professional sopranos, so their range, for example, can be very different. Knowing choir voices and experiencing realistic choir voices, it's a very different thing. When it comes to your singers, the ones you already have, you will have to motivate all of the time in every possible way for a very different occasion every time. The motivation fluctuates, so that's something you will have to think about a lot. It would be a good thing for you to memorize their names, the singers' names, as soon as you can. It will take some time, but if you put an effort to it, that could affect the choir in a good way. They will appreciate it. People like to be seen. Probably there will be some people who are a difficult choir member. Just know that is a common thing and you're not alone and you will go through many things, but there are ways to work around this issue and with those people. Don't take it personally. That's just a way of life, people are different. And if you feel that you don't have enough choir singers, there are ways to work around this. Additionally, you can organize an audition and choose your new singers. My advice would be not to do an audition when you're not already very familiar with existing singers. Because yes, new singers can refresh a choir in a very good way, but they also disrupt things in the choir. So the issues the choir has can be augmented if new choir singers arrive before they should have. In general, it will take you time to get to know your choir. It will take you time to get their trust. It will take you time to get their respect. You will get through so many things, and it doesn't work overnight. You have to prove yourself. It's not the most difficult job in the world, but it's not the easiest. And it definitely looks like it's really simple when you're a singer in a choir. You have so many things you want to change when it comes to your choir director's behavior. And I've been in those situations. I've been a choir singer, so I would think something about their way of working, and I would get frustrated sometimes. Why are things not going well? He or she should do this or this. But then when I became a choir director, I realized why some of the things were just, some things take time and you have to make some mistakes in order to learn your lessons. There are some lessons I wish I knew before even starting, but almost every year, I have done here on the channel lessons that I learned throughout the year. And there is a reason why I do that video every year, because every year I learn some mind-blowing things. Okay, the lessons become more specific, but still, it's an ever-evolving job. And once you've done a lot of work, if you don't want to talk about it sooner or beforehand, you can negotiate how to get properly compensated for your work. I hope this overview of the position, with all of the suggestions of the videos here, makes you feel a bit more comfortable with the fact that you're becoming a choir director. It is a beautiful job. It's overwhelming. The emotional stress can be a great one, but do not take things personally. You have to know your stuff. You have to study. Don't take anything for granted. Don't take a really good rehearsal for granted, because it doesn't mean that the next rehearsal will be a good one as well. But you will do great. You can't learn how to be a choir director if you're not a choir director. So if you're just starting out, just know that that's normal. And people will have opinions, and people will leave probably the choir when they see that the choir director changed. But that doesn't mean that there is a problem with you. And if there are things you need to work on, you will recognize them, because there is something about standing in front of a group. You get your flaws and weaknesses reflected. So you will be aware if you have to work on something or when. That said, if you haven't been in front of a choir yet, and you're watching this video thinking, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, just know that when you are in front of the choir, when you feel their energy, when you feel their flow, things will get easier. So right now, you're just seeing a great big void, but when you stand in front of the choir, especially with a few rehearsals, you will manage your ways much better. The growth of experience and knowledge is great. So don't be afraid. Trust yourself. Trust your choir singers. You have nothing to be afraid of. Just have the respect for yourself and for the choir and for the position. But if you're here on the channel, if you're watching this, if you're forming yourself, I can already tell you that you're doing great, because even you thinking about these things and not just coming to the rehearsal thinking, oh, I know this, it will benefit you, and it shows that you're on the right path. Okay, so that was the video. I hope it was helpful. If you wish to talk to me, you can email me or put it down in the comments below. Yeah, I think that's it. Again, there is a playlist for this video, so you can grab yourself a cup of coffee and start going through them. Also, there is an extended playlist, a choir director's toolkit you can check out, and I think that puts you in a very good starting position. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being here. You can subscribe if you want to stay. Conduct well, conductors, and I'll see you next time. Bye!